My name is Samuel Abada, um, who, de- who developer expert for Flutter and that. Also the lead mobile development team, short life mobility, right? Um, do you have mobile engineers here? Maybe you do native Android, iOS, Flutter, React Native. I don't know. Oh, no mobile engineer here. Just one. This is sad, but equal annoying. Oh, two. Okay. Okay, all right. My topic is state restoration, right? I said making the dead state live again, right? So we are raising the dead here, right? Miracle is happening. Hallelujah. All right. So what exactly is state restoration? What exactly is state restoration? So there are times you're using a mobile application, right? And then due to one reason or the other, you decide to like minimize the app, maybe to pick a call or do some other action on some other app. And by the time you come back to the app that you had minimized, right, you realize that whatever you were doing, you are like starting all over again, right? So we say the app went to the background and it came to the foreground, and then you've lost track of what is happening. So I said sometimes when your app is in the background and you open them after some time, they start over from the beginning. And with some applications, you don't land where you left. So imagine I'm filling a multi-level form, maybe a three screen form, right? Filled form one, form two. I'm on the third screen, and maybe I need to maybe upload my passport, for example. I'm like like minimize, go and get the passport, and I come back, minimize the app back. I'm back to form one. And you're like, if I'm used, I'll just close the app. Bye bye. That's the end. Right? What happened here is that the mobile OS, the operating system, Android or iOS, killed the app while it's in the background. Right? So it happens because it's trying to like manage memory, right, and computational resource. Computational resource for us on mobile apps translate as RAM, right? So the device is trying to maximize save up memory and all these guys. And then it has a couple of processes that are already running on the device. And it's like what the OS just does is what's the active process right now on the foreground. Every other thing, just kill it and let this guy keep running. And then when you come back to the app, you realize that everything is gone. So in essential, you can still let the user keep the experience that they've gone through and land at the same place they were, even if the operating system has killed the app in the background. That's the whole idea of state restoration. State restoration says that yes, I know your device has killed the process that this app was running. I'm going to help you restore it, so the user does not have to like go through all that process again. Just take them back to where they stopped and continue. User is happy. User does not even need to know that anything happened. User is happy. I am happy. The world is safe. So state restoration greatly increases the user experience, right? That is some of your thing. It greatly increases the user experience. So let's do some theory. We can't talk about state restoration without defining some key concepts. This is why I asked earlier if we have mobile engineers here, because my class sounded like gibberish at some points. This is just some theory and talk. We've said all this already. State restoration comes in and says, hey, you can still let your user keep the experience intact and land back to the application exactly at the same place they were, even if the operating system kills the application in the background. This means your user can land back to the same item they have stored in or the same text field they were while it was filled. So in summary, state restoration is a mechanism that allows you to ensure that certain data is automatically saved when the application is set to the background. In simple words, it greatly increases the user experience. In cases where users have filled in a couple of text fields and they minimize the app, they come back again after just to continue editing, right? All states will be gone without state restoration. The point of state restoration is keep this data. When we talk about state in mobile app, it basically does data. It could be some email I have in my email field, or I have scrolled my transaction history to a particular place where I was in that scroll state, right? These are like what they call states generally. Yeah, so I said there are a couple of words we have to define before we talk about how to implement state restoration. The very first one is what we call a restoration manager. This guy is like the coordinator for everything that happens, right? His work is basically to handle all the communication between the engine, the first framework, that's the engine, right? And then the state restoration class. So you communicating with the device, the framework, save me this data, retrieve me this data is done by the restoration manager, is the coordinator. It's like the supervisor for every other person. Then we've got a restoration scope. It's basically a simple widget or a simple class that can contain all other restoration scope among the descendants. The point of this scope is to say whatever state we are restoring along this line should be in this particular bucket, right? So it also goes with the idea of restoration buckets. Like the name implies, buckets, you can keep it in the bucket, right? The bucket can contain water and whatnot. So that's what we call restoration buckets. The same idea. Also, what we call a root restoration scope, which is basically the first guy in the hierarchy. Typically, we used to position the root restoration scope at the root of the application, like the very first thing you have up there, right? Before you even run the app, right? It's very unique and it differs from app to app. That's basically what the engine is going to use to locate the application. Oh, we have one root restoration scope here with this particular ID, particular to this application. So I know that's like plenty theory. You're like, I know theory can be boring sometimes, but it's good. So this is what it looks like, right? Every Flutter app has a main method. Without the main method, I mean, there's no app, right? And the run app method. So I said the root restoration scope is always at the root of the application, the very first thing, right? The first in the hierarchy. How it looks like. Root restoration scope with its restoration ID wrapping the application. This is basically the data that is being used by its restoration. In programming, we have primitives, we have integers, we have doubles, floats, booleans, maybe enums in some cases, right? Restorable parts are basically this primitive, but in their restorable form. These some charts on primitives and restorable primitives. I think I have a table for it. So primitive, we have string, integer, we have double, we have numeric type, we have boolean, enum, date type, time of day, right? And the restorable type of this, restorable string, restorable integer, restorable double, restorable num, restorable boolean, enum, date type, time of day. Then we have the null equivalents, nullable string, nullable integer, nullable double, nullable boolean. Then we also have restorable string n, where n indicates nullable. Similarly, restorable int n, restorable double n, restorable boolean n. These are basically the primitive type and the equivalent restorable primitive type, right? So we call them restorable properties. Restorable string, integers, double, and whatnot. Everything in your mobile application, right? Whatever data you are displaying, are usually made up of this primitive. Even for your custom types and classes, you see they still contain these primitives. So state restoration in practice, how exactly do we build our app to restore these states? So I'm using the default. Flutter comes with a default counter app where you have just one button to implement a particular counter. So the very first thing is the root restoration scope at the top of the application with its restoration ID. Right, that's the very first thing you need to do. Very simple. There's no magic anywhere. Right, so this is simple application. My app is stateless widgets. I turn the material app and I have my home page there. The regular Flutter app, there is no addition, no subtraction here. So what exactly is going on in here? The default Flutter app has a simple counter for you to increment and decrement, right? Now that's an integer. However, you want to be able to restore the state of this counter. So we went from basic integer to restorable int. Right, so we define a restorable int private variable called counter, right? And set it to a restorable int with default value 0 instead of a regular integer. All right. So you can basically swap out your primitives for the restore property type. Right. That's what we have here. And a simple method for us to implement the counter. Normally, we would have just done counter plus plus if it was a regular integer, right? But now that it's a restorable integer, to get the value of a restorable property, you do dot value on that restorable. So counter dot value plus plus, meaning increment the value of this counter. Straightforward. Every other thing is basic. There's no other addition or subtraction anymore. For us to reference the value of the counter, we call the counter, right, dot value. I mentioned that the counter is a restorable property, restorable int in this case, to get the value or the integer contained in it, dot value. And that's basically it. There is no other manipulation done anywhere. So that's for restoring primitives, right? But your mobile application is just beyond data containing primitives. In your mobile application, you navigate, you move from screen to screen, right? You log in, check transaction history, you do things like make transfer, right? So you navigate between screens. So you need to be able to restore the state of this navigation. I've gone from screen A to screen B to screen C. I need to be able to restore that my user journey or path has gone from A to B to C. When I'm restoring the state, I need to restore that full journey. And that brings us to restoring routes, navigation itself. How do we restore routes? How do we ensure that we can restore navigation stack? Similarly, like the primitives that we have restorable types, we also have similar for navigation. For your Flutter application, the way to navigate, you call method like push name, right? Push replacement name, pop and push name and remove, push replacement, push and remove until, replace and replace route below. One is missing here, which is the pop. You don't need to restore the pop. Pop basically says go back to the previous screen, right? As the name implies, pop the latest route of the stack. So there's no need for me to restore the pop. I mean, it's no more there in the stack again. There's no point. At the other end of the table, we have the restorable type for these primitives. So where we have push name, we have restorable push name, just like we have int and restorable ints. Where we have push replacements, we have restorable push replacements, push, restorable push. In fact, anything you want to restore, there is basically a restorable type for it. And the conversion is restorable, whatever method it is, or restorable and whatever type it is. Like it's very intuitive for everyone. Right, so restorable push name, restorable push replacements, push pop and push name, push replacements, push and remove until, restorable replace route below. The point of restoring route is to ensure that while I'm trying to restore the data that was saved earlier, I'm able to restore the navigation history also, right? So I don't want to restore the data and drop you at the wrong screen. So here's a very simple example of how to restore routes. So yeah, I have a very simple screen. I've removed the UI for the screen and all those other jargons for the purpose of this presentation. It's a very simple, stateful widget, very simple page. What I've done here is what I've done here is I've defined a simple page called the basket page, and then define the restorable routes that returns the basket page routes. Every other thing is just gibberish that's not necessary. And the way to push the basket page, ensuring that we can restore the basket page, is by doing this. So navigation of context, restorable push. Regularly, we would have done navigation of context dot push. Like that's the way we navigate generally. Just push to that screen and we are fine. But since we are trying to ensure that we can restore that screen, even if when the OS kills the application, right? You do a navigator dot restorable push to that screen, right? Like that's how simple it is to restore navigation. You don't have to do extra magic and extra work here. Almost like in our application, we always have custom types, right? We create custom types from primitive, maybe a simple class that might hold other data. Maybe, say, for example, a person class that might hold a name maybe account number, numeric type, and whatnot. How do we create custom restorable type? As mobile engineers or as software engineers, oftentimes we deal with notifiers a lot. We want to notify our UI of change in state. So this is a very simple, this is a custom class that has some getters and setter for me to get and set my language. Then I have a serialization method here to convert to JSON and to convert JSON back to language. A very simple class. And here is how we create a restorable type from it. You basically extend its restorable primitive. So if I want to create a custom, right, for int, I want to extend restorable int. But in this case, I'm extending restorable listenable because change notifiers are generally listenables. Primitively, they are listenables. So what you do is you override the create default value. For your restorable value, you need a default, right? So you must override the create default and specify the default. That's one. You need a way to be able to restore and create this new type from primitives. Every custom class basically contains primitive to contain integer, to contain boolean or string. So you override it from primitive method to create that custom type from the primitive. Then of course override init with value. You could ignore this since you already have the create default value. Then override the method to convert that class back to primitive. Oftentimes we use JSON. That's the easiest way to communicate everything. So a simple JSON key value pair that holds the data and its value. Then a dispose method to dispose resources that we're not using. And that's it. For us to use that custom restorable, it's as simple as defining the restorable in the screen where we need it. Here, I've defined a restorable app session with a restorable ID called application and override the restore state method. Like that's how simple it is to restore custom state in strings. So it's not why we say our mobile application in these states, right? Everything we see on the UI is a function of states. It's reviewed based on state changes, right? You should not just save the state per se. You have to like empower the user, right? You have to empower state such that the state does not die, right, at the wrong time. That's the point of state restoration. You should let your app remember. You should be able to remember the states. One, you want to recover the states. The point is to keep users connected at every step of the way, right? Whatever they do, I've moved from screen A to screen B. I've scrolled through a list of transactions. You need to be able to remember all those states, keep them connected. The point is to make the whole application session feel seamless as possible. So yeah, I referenced a couple of resources. There's a guide that I wrote on GitHub, state restoration guides, a simple repo you could clone and go through. There is Flutter documentation itself. So yeah, this slide is available at this link, and also, yeah, basically everything you need from this link: resources, sample code, and whatnot. So thank you. Any question? Yeah, if there are any questions, I'll take them now.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, we'll just ask him this question. Yeah. I think that is my question. Wait, I'm waiting.
This guy will ask question.
Who is looking at me, right?
Yes. He asked question. He's looking at you. Then you are behind him, telling that one that it's my question. No, but when you fear, ask your question. Brother. No fear. We are all ready.
Please ask. Yeah. Yes.
So my question is there like a time limit to like state restoration after you, or is this just
Okay. Yeah. So there's no time limit. There's no time limit, right? So while your device can say maybe after 15 minutes of no activity, I'm cleaning the application, right? The whole point of state restoration is to tell the OS that this application, I want to be able to restore the state, even if you've killed the application, right? So while it might have keep the application process in the background. Once you restore the application, right, it queries the OS, say, give me all the necessary properties that were used by this application, and then it restores everything. So there is no time limit to this restoration. The time limit is basically for the device OS to kill the application process in the background, but that does not kill the restoration process. Users that don't experience that might be using high-end phones, right? Phones that have large resources to accommodate it happening. That's why your Samsung might not can when you come back to it, you see where you are, right? And your techno might have killed your thing because that techno does not have enough resources to keep that app safe in the background, right? So that's where the whole idea of restoration comes in. The techno might have killed the process, right? It is fine. I mean, every OS tries to, accommodate memory and whatnot, right? The point is, your app should be able to like query the OS and say, hey, I have some state that I was using previously that I've saved with you. Please give me that state. Restore it back to me, right? So you get the state back, and then the app will restore itself to where you left it. So the reason that techno, when you come back, everything is gone is because there's no state restoration. That's just it. There's no state restoration. That's an app on the Samsung. Why there's no state restoration in it, right? The Samsung has more resource to accommodate the app, keep running in background. That's the reason. Yeah.